got John McMullen, Jody McDonald. We are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, longtime Eagle beat reporter, and now podcast host of Bowen on the Birds, Les Bowen. I got to tell you, Les, you got the best of all worlds now. You don't have to go down and sweat and hang with John McMullen and be with all these other Eagle beat people, and you get to just jump on with us and or do your podcast, talk about the Birds, and we know full well you know what it's like. You did it for years. First day of practice, what was it like for you? Were you like the players in that you got to get back into a routine, you just got to get going, and you got to jump start, or was it like, all right, I got to go out and sweat. What am I going to wear? We're more worried about what you're going to wear to stay as comfortable as possible. What was it like day one for you all those years you were out covering the Birds when the season got underway?
Well, my main thought today is how much it's changed. They're off. They're having a walkthrough today, but there's no access. So the reporters aren't even going to go down there. When Andy Reid was running camps at Lehigh, you were doing 2 a day, and most of us stayed in a hotel there in Bethlehem because the day was so long every day, that you couldn't really go. I live in South Jersey, so it was really hard to get back up there in the mornings. And it was just an incredible grind the first week or so, especially. And it's not really like that anymore. It's and in some not so good ways, I think there was just so much more access to players.
Yeah. And those college campus days, last man. You see guys walking around, you have conversations.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
you could get anybody you wanted by hanging out at the back of the locker room there between sessions. Now that I guess they gave you some players yesterday in the auditorium, and then there were some guys interviewed on the field. But
the tent. They do it in the tent in training camp. But they don't even let us grab people going off the field. So you sort of have to wait until they open the locker room, which is, the week before the regular season.
Right.
The disappointing part is everybody gets the same guys, the same quotes.
Yes.
Yes. Which is disappointing for us, but for fans who don't realize that's where you get, and there's so many this time of year, Les, to me, I mean, no disrespect to Jason Kelsey, Brandon Graham, because those guys are phenomenal, but how many times have we talked to Jason and Brandon? I want to talk to guys we don't get to talk about and find interesting stories. Maybe it's an undrafted kid, maybe it's one of these 1-year reclamation projects. Those to me are the interesting stories.
The tight end Jackson who showed up yesterday.
He had a great day. Yeah,
things like that. That's what's interesting about camp. That's exactly right. Yes.
And a lot of that has gone away. It's disappointing, and I wish more fans realized it and kind of push back. I don't know how you can push back though, because once COVID happened, it gave the NFL, not just the Eagles, it gave the NFL an opportunity to push people further back. And then you have all these, everybody, Hard Knocks. Jody's excited. The New York Jets, a lot of Hard Knocks going on, but everybody's got sort of their mini Hard Knocks on their own social media, their websites, but it's very obviously, I call it state-run media. That's what it is, right. And you only accentuate the positive. And guess what? Not everything's positive.
That's right. Well, even with Hard Knocks, what you're seeing now, I thought it was really funny when they announced last week that the Jets were going to do it very differently. They weren't going to show people getting cut and stuff like that. And people were like puzzling over this, that's not the formula for Hard Knocks. Well, the NFL doesn't care. The Hard Knocks to begin with runs totally counter to every trend in the NFL over the last 15 years in terms of media access. Letting people inside like that, even if you have veto power over some of the stuff that's shown, just isn't the way that they want to do things. And, I'm not surprised that it's going to be a very, in recent years, it has been a very different kind of experience watching that than it was in the early Wild and Woolly years when Rex Ryan or somebody would, you just don't have that in the league anymore, and it's a shame. But yeah, to get Jody's original question, I don't miss the standing out there. It really, the older you get, and I'm in decent shape, I can still trudge 3 miles really slow, but it's standing out there in the sun just saps your legs. It's, you cover up as much as you can because, you don't want to get skin cancer.
Yeah.
But it's a real grind. You don't get to sit down.
You start thinking about fashion less and less. I brought up my goofy bucket hat last year. Bucket
hat is a good idea. Yes.
And Jeff Stoutland saw me the one day, and he's telling me the story, interesting story. He had to have his ears clipped because as a football coach, he's out in the sun so much. You got to be careful. You got to.
Well, of course, Jim Johnson, the late defensive coordinator, died of melanoma. It's really, it's something you think about. Everybody smells like sunscreen. It's a very odd. Sit down and work and write after.
You feel like you need a shower before you sit down and write.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, the Eagles showered up, I'm sure, after their 58 minutes yesterday, and they're going to go through a walkthrough today, and we'll see if they take some of the sloppiness out that was in yesterday's practice. But again, just day number one. That's why the first question I asked you on today, did you learn more from the 58 minutes on field or the time spent listening to either Nick Sirianni and or Howie Roseman? Howie didn't really give you a heck of a lot, but Nick did say running back by committee in camp.
Yeah.
Don't try and read the tea leaves much. Ooh, who got the first snap of the day? Who got the first handoff today? Yeah. They're all going to get a chance. They all did get a chance yesterday. I agree with John in that they hope to have someone separate and be the number one, but they're not going to do that until someone has established that. How do you think it's going to shake out? Like, we can just take our guesses as per what they've done elsewhere. Swift and Penny coming in from outside. Gainwell here 2 years. Boston Scott here several years. When all is said and done and we get to week number one against the Patriots, will there be someone who's separated as number one? Who do you think that's going to be?
I think it pretty much has to be DeAndre Swift for a couple reasons. One is he's the guy with the resume. He's probably the guy who's done the most of this group. Two, Rashad Penny might be more talented, probably is more talented, but given Rashad Penny's injury history, there's no way they're going to try to, he's going to have to be like a seasoning added to the mix. They're not going to try to ride him and get him hurt right off the bat. You could see them ride him in the playoffs or something like they did with Kenny Gainwell last year if they get that far with him healthy. But I just don't see Rashad Penny being the guy they're going to strap the load onto right out of the box, regardless of how well he does in the preseason. And I don't think there's any, I think those are the two main guys. Gainwell, I'm really interested in how they handle Gainwell because he did have that strong taste of success in the playoffs. And when you guys talked to him, John, back in June, he was like, "Yeah, I'm expecting a lot more this year," And they did lose Miles Sanders, but the guys they brought in, I don't know that Kenny's looking at that much more. He's going to have to really, as Jody said, earn whatever he gets here. And Swift is a good receiver out of the backfield, which is one of the things that Gainwell kind of brings you. And it'll be real interesting. I expect it to be Swift, but I think they will use it. Probably won't be like last year when Miles Sanders clearly, Miles Sanders had a career year and they really de-emphasized the other guys pretty much in favor of Miles.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we'll see anything like that this year.
Yeah, I'm in the camp where I think they hope they find a lead back. I don't think they want to do running back by committee, and if they do, that's probably because they can't find a lead back, which I don't think is a good sign necessarily.
Right.
Penny, I think, is interesting because I look at it the opposite way, Les. I'm like, I know the injury history, but I can't control injuries. He's not going to be here next year. Why don't you DeMarco Murray him? It's the untoward aspect of the NFL. But I mean, we know what the Eagles believe at the position. So my take is if he plays well, he's going to earn too much money. They're not going to want him. And if he plays poorly, obviously they're not going to want him.
Yeah.
But, just give him the football until he can't go anymore. That's kind of, I mean, it's the ugly aspect of football, but that's been the reality of that particular position.
Yeah, I'd just kind of like to have him around at the end of the season if that's at all possible. We don't know what it is, but I think those are both really good backs, and I think they're in great shape at the running back room. It's a deeper room than they had last season. I don't think it will detract too much from the fact that this offense is still about Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. But I do like the running back room.
Mark my words, at least once this year, Rashad Penny will sit without being injured. He will not be active for a game.
Oh, okay.
Maintenance, that they will keep him less.
Greg Popovich. They
Popovich.
Do that during the week, Jody. That's what they do during the week. Nobody practices during the week.
Yeah.
Right. I am predicting that it will happen on a Sunday this year, not during the week. When Eagles play a Sunday game, because they could be playing Thursday or Monday, but you get my drift. Yeah. A Sunday game, there will be health maintenance for Rashad Penny. He will not even be active. So the coaching staff is not tempted to put him into the game. I'm kind of going with you, Les. Like to have him at the end of the season. I think they will try and protect him for a long playoff run, and he'll get some maintenance Sundays, not maintenance practices, some maintenance Sundays for Rashad Penny. And we'll see if it happens. I don't remember anybody ever doing it before, but the Eagles like to be cutting edge, and I think they will do that with him this year. All right, Les, another day, another practice, another day of a tight end who might be as physically gifted as any tight end they have, Mr. Jackson, making a couple plays in practice. When is he going to go? Should they be thinking maintenance for him to just try and protect him? Because every time he makes a play in practice, the next day he gets hurt. He's back on the IR again. I want to see this kid succeed, but I just don't know if that's possible because it always seems something's going wrong with him physically.
Yeah, I don't know what the story is with Tyree Jackson, but he's a former quarterback. He's very athletically skilled. What does he know about playing tight end at this point? Has he been out there on the field enough to really absorb the finer points? Has he been able to do that while being sidelined? I don't know, but he's certainly it's an interesting room, the tight end room. You got Dallas Goedert, and then you have several guys who've shown this or that. Grant Calcaterra, Dan Arnold, who's played in the league with Jacksonville. On my podcast, I had Clay Harbor last week as a guest, who was a very interesting guest, by the way.
We've had Clay. Clay's awesome.
I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. This is a guy that his career-ending injury suffered on The Bachelorette.
On the back,
we talked about Riley Cooper and the whole business. You remember that 10 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
But the reason I brought up Clay was Dan Arnold. Clay follows the Jaguars because he played there for several years after he left the Eagles. And he really likes Dan Arnold. He thinks Dan Arnold will be an asset to that group and will make the team and so forth. I don't know. I don't know Dan Arnold very well, but I'll
tell you what, he showed up in OTAs last. He made. Now yesterday I was expecting the Dan Arnold play. I didn't get it because he is a great receiver. Colin Thompson, who's on our show, local kid, just signed with Minnesota, tight end, speaks really highly of Dan Arnold. Yeah, he's a good player. Doesn't block much, but he's more of a receiver.
Yeah.
It's the microcosm of Tyree Jackson. He's so gifted athletically.
Mm-hmm.
So, Les, before they get into team drills, quarterbacks throw to receivers. Jason Michaels, the tight ends coach, was all over Tyree Jackson on one route because he didn't run it the right way, and he was giving him the business. And then he gets into teamwork, and he's just making plays because he's more athletically gifted than he's playing with the second, third team, obviously,
Right.
so it's not the starters, but it's sort of one of those things. Can you tap into it? Can you get him to do the other stuff, all the technique, and then the injuries?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you've seen it. The play he got hurt on. I believe you were there that day. Remember at the back of the end zone where he just landed flat on his back, but he made an unbelievable catch.
Yeah. And this is what, as I was saying, this is what training camp is all about. This is what in week 8, it might not matter at all, but this is what you look for in training camp.
Yeah.
Stuff like this. And it's always interesting to follow it.
Yeah.
I call it the Tyree tease. He does this in camp and everyone gets excited because they get a video of him making an unbelievable play. Yeah, but then he gets hurt. So we'll see if this year they can avoid the injured part of it. Other guy who has been good in the off season this year, which includes the couple of OTA practices they had yesterday, Christian Ellis with another interception. And I want to just go, stop. It's practice. But that's all they have to judge on at a couple of positions here. And they're not going to be doing 28 practices before the season starts. Right. So this very short period of time is very important when it comes to evaluating positions that are up for grabs. And Christian Ellis continues to make plays.
And by the way, let me add, hey, nobody else is making plays at linebacker. So it might just be practice, but
Yeah, Christian Ellis is such an interesting story. We never really got the whole, last year, when they finally brought him up from the practice squad, suddenly he had an impact on special teams, which made me wonder what took them so long. Because that's one of my favorite bugaboos about last year's team was the many and varied ways that the special teams let them down over the course of the season. And nearly cost them games and changed the course of games and eventually bit them in the butt in the Super Bowl.
Who would have predicted that, Les?
Yeah. Christian Ellis made a difference there. And now he looks at a situation at linebacker where there's not another position on the team that's as wide open as that to me. Yes, they have Nakobe Dean, but the veteran that they gave, the only veteran they brought in is like they can cut him tomorrow. I mean, he's making nothing.
By the way, literally zero guaranteed money.
Yes,
like every other, they signed a bunch of these 1-year guys.
Yeah,
like nobody talks about Justin Evans. He got some $500,000 or whatever. Nicholas Morrow was the only one who got no guaranteed money whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah,
and you've got T.J. Edwards and Kazir White both left, and they weren't deep there last year. They didn't have a lot of guys they wanted to put on the field. So I just think that's a huge opportunity for Christian Ellis, undrafted guy though he is, and without resume that from last year as a linebacker though he is. I think there's no other position on the field where you can carve out, a chunk for yourself as an unknown guy like that position, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm at the point where let's just see the guy with the first team. Put him, and he got some first team reps to their credit because the Eagles saw what he was able to do in the spring and said, "All right, let's give him some." Mixed him in with Nakobe, and he made a play again. Why is it hurt? I think what you have in Nick Morrow. He's, solid NFL player, but I think the upside is limited. So why not, see what this kid can do.
Yeah,
And
if this guy can play,
yeah, that really helps if he can,
right.
If he can play, because, and we'll go to Nakobe here. Boy, I think, I get it. He was a great college player. He had the great reputation, but he played 34 snaps. Jody and I talk about that a lot. The Eagles should have done a better job of mixing him in. And I agree with
hard
that.
to do stuff like that while you're chasing.
Yeah, it is. I see both sides.
But it is. But yeah, you're right. There were a couple guys like that last year. Even Jordan Davis. I think they down the stretch they sort of.
Yeah, they were down the stretch. They just said, you know what? I trust the veterans. I'm going to play the veterans, and I think they did a disservice to the younger players. Could have mixed them in a little bit better.
I agree.
But it's a tough balancing act. I get it. But here we are, and they put so much on Nakobe's plate. I think there's going to be some hiccups there, Les. I really do.
Me too. And as great as he was in college, you stood next to the guy. Yeah. He's as small a linebacker as I've been around in a long time. He's Alex Singleton is a little taller than he is, I think. And Alex wasn't a great physical specimen. I know you don't have to be Jeremiah Schroeder anymore to play linebacker in the NFL, but I worry about injury, with Nakobe. I just think that is really no matter how dynamic he is and how talented he is, that's a really small, that's a safety size guy, really.
Yeah. By the way, can I jump in and say,
no, hold on. Let me get in here for a second. If he's too small to play, John continues to reference this. You're referencing it now.
John Clark did it as well. Because Les, people get mad at me because I say he's really small. They get mad at me. So I just want to point out, John Clark said it. Les Bowen said it. They both been next to him. Don't believe me. Believe Les. I'm not lying to you.
His size is his size. Okay. If you and others think that he's too small, why didn't they address linebacker during this offseason? Why didn't they go out and get someone to put the dot on if they didn't think Kaiser White was worth the money he got and TJ Edwards wasn't worth the money he's got? Why are they just turning the keys to the castle over to a safety who's playing middle linebacker?
Well, they believe in him. They drafted him high.
So it's you guys who don't believe in him because he's too small.
Well,
I want to get the line of thinking between the Eagles and John McMullen, John Clark, and Les Bowen as to is Nakobe Dean at this safety-like size going to be able to play linebacker in the NFL?
I just say I have questions. They obviously don't. They saw him a lot more than I did in college. He did play against, playing at Georgia, you do play against NFL-sized guys a lot. So, they're not as worried about it, but it's something in the back of your mind until he goes out and really, dominates a game or something. It's something that he has to prove. I don't think it's necessarily, I'm not saying there's no way this guy's ever going to be any good. But I'm just saying this is a niggling concern to me as we go forward here. And the fact that he didn't get on the field last year for any significant action at all, it's all remains to be seen. I think even though I'm kind of countering there's a lot of hype the other way, Jody, that Nakobe Dean, they've got Nakobe Dean. Well, we'll see, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Les is on the same page as me. We're not saying he can't play. We're saying there's some questions, and I'm surprised, and I've said it pretty consistently on the show. I think the Eagles have gone overboard. I think for the most part, they're correct in devaluing the linebacker position. I think they've taken it too far.
And they've done that in the past. They've done that. That year that Doug Peterson had the horrible team, his last season, they blew that. They had no linebackers. That was one of the big reasons.
Like what I would have done is I would have brought TJ back and had Nakobe Dean play weak side next to TJ, and I think you're fine. I think I have no problems with that. Now he's got to be the middle linebacker. And again, the Eagles played 20 games last season. They're hoping to play 20 games again this season. TJ Edwards played all 20 games. Kaiser White played all 20 games. We talk about health, and you can't legislate injuries, and the game has changed, right? I mean, smaller players play.
Right.
But running back and linebacker, the two devalued position, those guys take a beating.
Yes.
They take a beating. Unless has seen TJ Edwards. TJ remade his body. TJ is jacked.
Yes.
TJ is prepared to play 20 games. He might tear his, I hope he doesn't. Good guy. He might get injured, soft tissue injury. But he has done everything possible to make sure that he can handle the wear and tear of being an NFL middle linebacker. I think it's fair to point out that Nakobe is very undersized to be an NFL middle linebacker.
Yes.
Maybe it's not a problem at all. Maybe, but I think it's fair to point it out.
For now, I just wanted to see what you guys thought. You've got concerns. You're not saying you don't think he can do it.
I think he's a very good player.
You're just saying concerns because he played so little and because he's how many pounds less would you say last year's
it's really hard to say because they list the listed weights for these guys.
That's why I'm asking, and unless you're not down there every day like John.
But I'm going to say
what would you say the weight difference is, John, between Edwards and Nakobe Dean?
At least 20.
Yeah.
TJ's legit 240, 241. I'd say Nakobe, if he gets to 220, the Eagles list Nakobe. This is part of the problem. The Eagles list him at 231, and people say, well, that's not that much smaller. And as Les points out, don't take those numbers with a grain of salt.
Those are rounded up and rounded down for the team's narrative as they want to tell it.
The other position, of course, we talked about is right guard. And
Same thing.
Spring that they listed Isaac Suomalo and Cam Jurgens at virtually the same size.
Yes, 305 to like 302. And those two guys are not similar at all.
No.
So
at least 20 pounds difference there. Yeah.
And I would say, as I said, TJ's I think Nakobe struggles. I think Nakobe's probably 220 right now. Mm-hmm. And then he loses weight
because
then he loses weight. Yeah, as the season goes on. So probably ends up playing at 215. TJ's legit 240.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. With the practice number one under their belts and Friday's practice being scheduled to take place on a day that it could get into the upper 90s. Now it won't be that at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's 3 o'clock.
Well, they'll probably be inside, I would guess, where they have air conditioning.
You think they're going to go inside second practice of the year?
I think they're going to move it up, Les. They'll move it up an hour. That's what they did last year.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
That's my guess.
But no, they're not going to be out there in 100 and whatever the feels like temperature is. Andy would in the old days, but that was the CBA. It's not just Nick Sirianni, different ideas. The CBA is real different now, but and in Andy Reid day, we'd all be out there.
Can't sit down. Hey, Les, I would say my worst moment covering the NFL was I was on the field the day Corey Stringer ultimately passed away. And that was literally the demarcation line. Like before that, people would Mike Tyson was a phenomenal guy, tough guy though, old school. Back then they used to make fun of players for not drinking, for drinking water. Oh, like you're soft. You're soft. How goofy that was. When you think about it in hindsight, that literally changed the game. But I remember, people don't believe this. We as writers, when I was covering Minnesota, we were not allowed to bring water onto the field pre Corey Stringer. That's how goopy it was back then.
There's a famous story from Lehigh of I won't say the reporter's name because I don't have her permission to tell this, but a reporter was there. She was pregnant, very pregnant. And one of Andy's rules was you can't, go down to a knee or sit down. So she was like, it was really hot, and she was kind of dizzy, and she kind of went down to one knee, and they sent the security guy over to, tell her, you got to stand up,
Yeah.
I've never heard that story before.
Yeah.
Shame.
Oh yeah, Andy's even Doug. Later, I mean, one day at practice with Doug, it was raining really hard, and we went under that. There's like one little section of the NovaCare complex with, where you can go under and get out of the rain a little bit. And Doug sent over, I don't think, one of the PR guys and said, "Hey, get those guys out of there."
Yeah,
And
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is.
It is.
Les Bowen, give us the details on when the podcast posts every single week.
Well, I do it from 3 to 4 on Thursday, so it will be today actually, and then it will post whenever they get around to, whenever the producers and powers that be get around to throwing it up there. But it is on most of the streaming platforms, I believe. It's
Who you got? Anybody you can announce?
I do have Zach Berman today.
Oh, Zach.
Very nice.
I've been trying to get like offbeat guests, like Clay Harbor last week, like Brandon Brooks, to talk about Wall Street and stuff during the weeks when we were kind of nothing was going on. But now that we've started camp, and as we referenced, I wasn't out there yesterday, so I want to get Zach is a former colleague with the Daily News and the Inquirer, and he works for the Athletic now, and he's very assiduous in his
he is
noting of everything. So I want to get the full rundown from him and discuss some of the same things that we discussed today. Maybe I'll just loop in a clip of this.
Feel free. Yeah, you share with us, we share with you.
Yeah, help get the hour going there. But I'm enjoying doing it, and it's going pretty well so far. And I'll have to have one of you guys on soon. I've got a lot of weeks to fill. So
got a lot of John. We're always there for you, Les.
John actually works for a living. He goes to practice and stuff like that. So I will absolutely volunteer to jump in with you anytime that you need, Les, because you've been very good jumping in with us. We appreciate you doing it today. Bowen on the Birds podcast records today, drops later. Check it out when you get the chance where you get your better podcast. Les, great stuff. Thanks, bud.
Thank you, Les.
Thank you, guys.
That's Les Bowen here with us on Birds 365. All right, Jody Mac coming back. A couple more things I want to get into from yesterday's 58-minute practice. They're getting ready for the season. These are the rules. This is what they play by. They're only going to do so much.
By the way, I saw some people say it was over an hour. The practice was 58 minutes. I got that from Dom DeSandro. So, Dom, I get the exact level of practice from Dom every day. If I see him, when I see him, it's hard not to see him. So it's a green practice, what the Eagles call a green practice. It's scheduled for 58 minutes. So that's why I use the term so assiduously, as Les would say. I'll throw that out there. So that's what, green practice is 58 minutes.
What are the other colors and time limits? Since there is I did not know there was a limit, a number, a hard number.
Well, they schedule these things down to the minute. There's a yellow practice, there's walkthrough. I wish I should remember. I just go to Dom every day because I want to know how long I'm going to be out there. It doesn't matter as much as it used to. But he's got the schedule. So
if they log 52 minutes, is that different? If they do 24, is that indigo? I'm just wondering how much this time and color chart matches up.
You know what? I haven't paid as much attention as I should to that. So
you need to be more assiduous, John.
I know. I need to be more assiduous. But there's three different, and I can't remember offhand, but I'll get to them all during camp.
For a future Birds 365 episode, Johnny Mac breaks down the color scheme and the number of minutes that the Eagles will be practicing.
Green, baby. Green
yesterday at night at 58 minutes. All right, we've got more than 50. We got 64 minutes left to go here today. A lot yet to talk about, including when we get Chris Franklin up in hour number 2 what his hat wear will be for the next couple of weeks going down to Eagles practice. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We are Birds 365.